Hello and welcome to another adventure of one man, one van. Here is my little bed that I sleep in. Actually, it looks quite cozy, I think. I set out and the first week out was just wet and cold. So there are no real photos. But as you can see, living in the van isn't so bad, especially when you can curl up on a cold night and have a good sleep. My first stop that I was able to really get out and enjoy myself was a place called Witcherproof. Witcherproof is famous because it has the smallest or the shortest mountain in the world, and I climbed it. And here is the mark at the top of the smallest mountain in the world. The view from the mountain is good. The rest of the area around is completely flat, and so actually looking out, although the weather wasn't so good, I could still see very well and had a clear view. It wasn't far from where I was staying, so I was able to one morning just walk up to the little mountain and climb up. There was no one else there, and I can now say I have climbed the smallest mountain in the world. I think sunsets provide some of the most beautiful times of the day, and here is that lovely golden glow that captures just on sunset every day, when there are no clouds, that is. One of the next places I went to was Naya, and here I am on the Murray River. And I was lucky to have some beautiful days here, and I was able to capture some lovely shots, especially in the mornings. And this is on the bend at Naya. As I went walking in the morning, there were literally hundreds of kangaroos. And as I walked, if I kept my head down, they didn't worry about me. The moment I looked up towards them, they all ran away. Says something about my face, I suppose. But here are two of them who are just a bit curious. You can see here some of the lovely colours reflected in the river and actually accentuated, and I thought this one looked particularly good. It was like a painting, the reflection of the sky and the clouds in the water of the Murray River. This was again one morning, and if you look very carefully behind the trees, there's actually what looks like a lot of white. It's actually mist, and then the sun is coming up just over the mist and beginning to shine through the trees. Again, another beautiful day coming. I was very lucky here. This was an amazing shot. This is literally just opening the door of the van and looking out, and you can see the rays of the sunlight coming down and the mist coming up off the water. Such a beautiful time of the day in the morning. And I'm sitting there having my cup of tea, enjoying this. Moving on, I went up to Mildura, slightly warmer, and usually the days were quite clear again. And here I am again on the Murray River, and some fantastic reflections in the water, capturing the clouds in the sky above, that lovely dark brooding cloud reflected on the water. This was the next morning. You can see it was quite misty, and the sun is coming up, and we're just able to capture the whole mood of looking across the river towards New South Wales and the sun coming up through the mist. Very quickly the mist is burned away, the sun comes up and it's blue sky. And if you have a look very carefully into the little trees at the front, you can see little spider webs which have caught the morning dew and are glistening like diamonds in the sunlight. Quite an amazing sight. I went back to Naya and walked up to the cemetery because I knew I had some relations buried there. A number of the Thwaites family are buried there, and this is a marker for one of them, James Thwaites, who was responsible for irrigation in the area. You can see here again, just looking out from my van and over onto the river, It's a beautiful quiet spot. I spent 5 days here altogether. I loved every moment of it. And again, you can see it's just a little dirt road that comes down to where I'm parked. So I drove down here, just pulled in, and literally I was within about 4 meters of the edge of the river. And I'd wake up in the morning and just look straight out onto the river. And again, this is what I would see. Just a beautiful sunrise coming up, and you can see the sun reflecting off the water, bouncing up towards me, and still a mist in the air. It was such a beautiful time of day. The birds would be singing, the kookaburras laughing, and of course the kangaroos. After this I moved down to Kerrang, and I was able to get some sunshine, so you can see my chair is sitting out. I'd been sitting reading in the sun, and in the background you can see my washing hanging out drying. Yes, domestics have to be done even while I'm travelling. After this I moved to a place called Gunbower. Gunbower has a caravan park, a police station, a post office, a brilliant pub, and a fantastic cafe. So I'll go back there just for the pub and the cafe, I think. The cafe especially was particularly good. And this is sunset one evening. And you can see here, this is sunrise in Gunbower again. The mist still floating on the ground, and the sun, beautiful golden sun, just starting to come up over the trees behind that. This was in Rochester. I stayed in Rochester for 2 nights on the Campaspe River, and loved walking down towards the river in the morning, and again capturing that morning light. Nothing seems to be more beautiful than sunrise in the country. You can see the sun just starting to come through the trees, and this is on the river. You can see it's quite hilly around the river, little mounds, and I found out that this is about 100 years ago where the Chinese people would come and they'd be growing vegetables down here by the river, and they built little mounds, and they have survived till today. I went down to Elmhurst and then camped on the river there as well. Beautiful little spot, just free camping, just pulled in, set myself up, and a beautiful sight on the river. And this is sunset, still at Elmore, looking across the river, and the sun just starting to disappear, and you can see that again, that beautiful golden colour, almost burning the sky as it comes through the trees almost like silhouettes in the foreground, and that lovely golden colour reflecting off the water. And so I'd go for a walk, and you can see the evening sky with streaks of cloud accentuated by the blue background. And just a few trees. It was a little bit wet, but still very enjoyable. My next stop was in Bendigo on the way back to Melbourne, and there's a large Buddhist temple just out of Bendigo. And this is inside. This is a jade Buddha. It doesn't look very big, but actually it's quite large and carved out of one piece of jade. And outside, the lions guarding the temple. Very colourful. Quite an amazing place they're putting together here. And they hope to open up a whole community, including schools and everything. And this was a funny caravan park I stayed in. Not that I stayed in many caravan parks, but each caravan site has its own little ensuite. So instead of a community bathroom, I had my own little bathroom. So you can see Andy Van backed in there, and I had a concrete slab to stand on, and then my own bathroom. This is the Catholic Cathedral in Bendigo, quite an impressive building. It's really almost on the scale of most European cathedrals. Very beautiful to look at. In Bendigo, there used to be a very large Chinese community who were there for of course, during the gold rush. And there is now a Chinese museum. And this beautiful dragon, it's the longest dragon in the world and actually goes around the whole building. This is a jade chariot. Exceptionally beautiful. The jade is carved, and you can see here that it's actually quite intricate. Outside there is the Chinese garden. Fortunately, they're about to close it and do some restoration work. It's looking a little bit tired, but still beautiful nonetheless. You can see the Chinese pagoda, the lovely red colours, and of course the pond with the mandatory fish. And on my way back, the stop I usually stay at in Harcourt, I went up to have a look, and you can see it's just wet, foggy, raining. I didn't stay. I actually continued back into Melbourne. There was no point, it was just thick mud. Thank you. See you next time.